All right, we are diving into a niche house that has become more and more popular as the years go by. And this year, BDK has launched 3 fragrances. And those 3 fragrances happen to be Impadia. We have Nectar Oud, which is an exclusive fragrance. And then finally, the most recent launch of Vanille Caviar. So the brand has a total of 24 fragrances according to my research. I've got 22 of them here. This is a deep dive video, as I said. So we're going to get started with the list of fragrances. I'm doing this in alphabetical order, but I'm going to also give you a little bit of a detail on how I first discovered BDK. I discovered BDK before anybody really knew about BDK. I was on my winter trip in Europe, and I was actually in Antwerp, Belgium. So I was staying in Antwerp more, not really visiting Brussels, but we decided to take a one-day trip to Brussels. And we were walking around and I discovered a niche perfume shop. So it's that store in December of 2016 that I first got to sample the fragrances of BDK. In fact, I posted about it on Instagram, and Instagram doesn't make it really easy to find posts. So I didn't dig it up, but if those of you that want to learn about my experience for the first time at a niche perfume house or shop that I haven't even been to since the discovery. But it was at that time, I believe they had 4 or 5 fragrances. I knew the brand was French. And of course, the shop I was visiting was in Brussels, Belgium. And so I got a thank you from BDK for posting about the brand and all that good stuff. And this is almost 9 years ago. So next year it'll be 10 years. I don't remember exactly when the brand launched. I think they launched in 2016. It could be 2015. So the brand is probably going to celebrate 10 years next year. But they've launched some great fragrances. There's some good ones here. I have my favorites. I'm going to let you know what my favorites are. And as I said, the brand lists around 24 with my research. I've got 22 fragrances here. We're going to start off with BDK's 312 Saint-Honoré. 312 Saint-Honoré. This came out, I believe, as a fragrance release for the opening of their store in Paris. And it's on the Rue Saint-Honoré, and this is the address, 312 Saint-Honoré. So this is created by Alexandra Carlin. The latest release is also created by Alexandra Carlin. We'll get to that towards the end of the video. I like this one quite a bit. It's powdery, it's musky, it's a bit minerally, and quite peppery. So if you like these kind of fragrances, I think it's inspired by the stone that's inside the store that they use to create. I think that's what the inspiration is, how cold and minerally it is. So I think the brand needed something like this in the collection. So I think it suits it perfectly. There's also quite a bit of like neroli or orange blossom that I'm smelling here with this. So it gives it a very clean, soapy effect in addition to the minerals and the powdery touches and the musky touches. And of course the spicy touches as well. I don't think this is like the big hit of the house. And but I think it's pretty solid for the type of fragrance it is. Powdery, musky, clean and soapy and floral and all that good stuff. So let me know if you're familiar with 312 Saint-Honoré. 312 Saint-Honoré. So that is by Alexandra Carlin. And I believe she's done 4 fragrances for this house. I'm assuming we'll get to them in a little bit. But the next fragrance is a fragrance created by Julien Rasquinet. He's got 2 fragrances for the house. The first one is not one of my favorites from the house. It's AMBRE SAFRANO. I don't know. I almost feel like I think I lost my train of thought there. I almost feel like this is not acting like a very ambery fragrance because the saffron is really taking over. Now, even though there's amber there, you can totally notice it. But the fact that the word amber or ambre comes before the saffron, confuses me a little bit because I'm getting more saffron and leathery touches here. Smoky, spicy, and, you know, the characteristics of saffron. So you've got, you know, like light metallic minerally touches in this as well, in addition to the fact that it does go leathery and smoky, but nicely contrasted with, you know, ambery resinous notes as well. I wasn't a big fan of it. There is a bit of a Middle Eastern thing happening in this as well, but it just didn't wow me, unfortunately. I prefer his other creation for the house, which is Tabac Rose. So he's created 2 fragrances for BDK, Tabac Rose and Ambre Safrano. That's Julien Rasquinet. Let me know which of these 2 are your favorites. We'll get to Tabac Rose towards the end. But for me, I'm a big fan of amber fragrances, and I like my ambers like Ambre Presso, you know, Grand Soir and things like that. These kind of ambers that are, you know, smoky and resinous, but also sweet at the same time. And I feel like whatever overdose of notes they have in here, and I think it's the saffron, that kind of takes away from that sweetness that I kind of want to balance out the fragrance. So it's kind of almost like one-sided. But again, that's my opinion. This is what I think about this fragrance. It doesn't wow me. It doesn't excite me. And I really do enjoy Julien Rasquinet's creations, but this one, unfortunately, just didn't do it for me. Let me know what your thoughts are on Ambre Safrano. Add a comment below. So the next fragrance is a fragrance called Bouquet de Hongrie. I think that's how you say it. And it's a fragrance created by Serge Majoullier. I'm not too familiar with this perfumer. Unfortunately, this is the only time I've heard about this perfumer for this fragrance. And bouquet obviously refers to bouquet of flowers. So you know what you're going to experience here. It's a floral bouquet experience. I also feel like this is a fairly mass market type of a floral fragrance. Not very niche. And I don't know if this is one of the fragrances that the brand launched with. It could be, you know. I think this might be one of the first fragrances that the brand launched with. But it's also very soapy clean. It's very fresh and floral. There's a juicy aspect to it. Like there must be some citruses in there. But it comes off very clean. But it also comes off very, very like mass market niche, but not necessarily like your everyday average designer fragrances. Something like Dior would put into their Privé collection. That kind. It kind of reminds me a little bit of, what is it? Dior has a rose. Anyway, they have a rose in the Privé collection, which is kind of dewy and fresh. I'm drawing a blank with the name. It kind of reminds me of something like that, but much cleaner, much fresher. Yeah, I think anybody that likes really easy-wearing floral fragrances definitely should try this. Because there's something easy about it, and it feels like something that everybody should enjoy, especially if they like fresh floral fragrances. And it's got that super clean quality and makes for, you know, something that's perfect for warm days and things like that. So that's Bouquet de Hongrie. I know I'm butchering the French there, but I'm not a French speaker. So we are talking about perfumes. And we're going to the next fragrance. It's called Citrus Riviera by Ralf Schwieger. So Ralf Schwieger created Citrus Riviera. And there's 3 fragrances in this series. There's a Villa Neroli, which is another Alexandra Carlin creation. That is a really lovely Neroli. There's a Celle d'Argent, which is an Anne-Sophie creation. It's a salty fragrance. Silver salt, I think it translates to. But Citrus Riviera, I think, is a pretty straightforward, fresh citrus fragrance. Lemony, juicy. Maybe there's some salty touches thrown in, but I don't pick up salty touches in this one. I get musky touches, though. But it's a simplistic fragrance. It's a citrus. They're usually citruses for me are very easy to wear. They're very fresh, juicy. You know, maybe they might throw in some aromatics, but this one's acting quite musky for me. almost like muskiness in fragrances that Kirkjan has created for MFK, like Aqua Universalis Forte and things like that. There is a bit of a linen cleanness in here, which sometimes I associate with maybe aldehydes or musks and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Nothing like a wow, but pleasant smell kind of a fragrance. And citrus fragrances tend to be very easy to wear, obviously. So if you like juicy citruses, check that one out. I mean, there's a lot on the market, and it'll depend on which one strikes your fancy, because you can be smelling like 100 citrus fragrances and none of them might work for you, but then one of them that you put your nose to, you go, oh my God, that's the best citrus I've ever smelled, kind of a thing. There are many fragrances like that, not just with citruses, but I'm using the citrus, scenario because there's a lot of citruses, because they're really easy to produce. Only thing is with citruses, they don't last as long as like deeper, stronger fragrances. All right, so the next fragrance we're talking about is Creme de Cuir. This is by Violaine Colas. This is a pretty late discovery for me, and I'm absolutely obsessed with this. It smells super good. And a creamy leather, like a suede leather, but kind of sweet gourmand leaning. But I wouldn't say this is necessarily a gourmand fragrance, but it smooths out the leathery touches and it makes it easier. But you still have the leather back there. It's got some slight animalic funk, but you can't compare this to other leather fragrances that are super animalic. There's some sweet, creamy touches in here to smooth it out, to maybe even make it cozy, because this does have a slight cozy creaminess that, creamy lactonic fragrances I associate with coziness, smoothness, relaxation, and, comforting and all that good stuff. So I quite like this one. And I think it's the same perfumer that created my favorite of the house, which is still Passessoir Extrait. So it's a perfumer by the name of Violaine Colas. I think that's how you say her name. Yeah, this is still my favorite, this Passessoir Extrait. In love with that. I think it's super sexy. But this Creme de Cuir is really good. Really, really great. Let me know if you're a fan of this one. It's a fairly late discovery for me, but I think this is one of the earlier releases, for sure. I can't remember exactly what I saw at that store. It's almost been 10 years, obviously, but I quite like Creme de Cuir. Let me know if you like it as well. The next fragrance is called French Bouquet, created by Amélie Bourgeois. French Bouquet, for me, is like a modern take on Chanel No. 5. Let me know if you guys get that. It's also interesting that we have French Bouquet and Bouquet de Hongrie. So 2 bouquet themed fragrances. French Bouquet, it's quite aldehydic. And also, like, there's some creaminess there as well. More like amber creaminess. It has some slight funk in there. There's definitely vintage vibes, for sure. I like classic fragrances. I like being inspired by classic fragrances. So I kind of like this. But sometimes some people that have a negative association with Chanel No. 5 might say this is too similar and I don't like it. It does have a bit of a makeup-y effect happening, all rolled into one, which is quite awesome. But I like that they pay tribute to aldehydic fragrances. It's called French Bouquet, so you've got lots of white flowers in here, floral notes. I believe there's also rose. But it's quite powdery, aldehydic, but within all of that and towards the end, there's definitely some warmth and maybe some light vanillic ambery touches as well. I think it's nicely done, and I do really enjoy Amélie Bourgeois creations. But this one, to me, doesn't have the DNA of some of the fragrances that they create. Now, she's done 2 other fragrances, Rouge Smoking, which I believe is one of the most popular from the house. And then she did, in collaboration with Margot Le Paih-Guérin, Rouge Smoking Extrait. So we'll get to those in a little bit. These 2 do have the DNA of Flair perfumes, but I don't get it from French Bouquet. I don't know why. I just don't get it. I think maybe the aldehydes covers it up for me. At least for me it does. I don't know. But those of you that are fans of Amélie Bourgeois creations and the Flair Perfumers creations, let me know if you get the DNA in French Bouquet. I mean, like, Amélie Bourgeois has done a lot of Les Eaux Primordiales fragrances, and you can really prominently know the DNA of her fragrances throughout the whole brand. And so, and then you can also smell it in other fragrances from other brands. I just don't get it from French Bouquet, unfortunately. Let me know if you do. All right, so I think we're going to the most popular fragrance from the house, which happens to be Gris Charnel. Now, Gris Charnel is definitely the most popular because Gris Charnel Extrait was the very first extrait that the brand created. Now, I've worn quite a bit of this one. It's not my most favorite from the house. What I like, to me, it's an interesting combo of something giving you the idea of tea and figs and woods and creamy woods. It's not that I hate it. I like it. There's something calming about it. Almost meditative, almost spa. I think the woods in here, there's maybe some greenness. But I don't understand how this could be the most popular. It doesn't seem like it can be, but it clicks with a lot of people. But let me know, you guys, are you a fan of Gris Charnel? Of course, it's got some spices and things like that in here as well. I'm getting some pepperiness, but there's definitely a greenness, lots of woods, aromatics, I think the figs, and it's got that tea and smokiness as well because, you know, tea can be smoky. This is created by Mathilde Bijou. I believe she's part of Man, the firm of Man, which is, you know, a fragrance house like Givaudan and Firmenich, DSM Firmenich, and IFF and things like that. She is with Man, right? Anyway, so that's Gris Charnel in the original. And then Gris Charnel Extrait, the Parfum, is a more concentrated take on the original, but there might be some changes here. Which do you guys like more? The original or the Extrait? So the Extrait is a lot deeper. It's also base heavy. You really can experience a lot more base notes, woods and ambers and things like that, a lot more here than you can with the EDP, the original. And you can actually smell the weight of the fragrance. The original is much airier. And if I smell the 2 side by side now, since the extract is so strong, I can't hardly smell the EDP much. I'd have to focus back on this. Yeah, there's definitely a lot more intensified. It's a lot more ambery, I think, and a lot more deeper woods here. But I think it's mostly still tea, figs, spices. I think it's not necessarily my favorite in the collection, but I don't think it's a bad fragrance. I've tried to really, really enjoy this one, but I still keep coming back to Passoir Extrait. I love that fragrance a lot. But I think the Gris Charnel Extrait is definitely pretty solid. Of course, as you can see, I've worn quite a bit of it. I like it. It's, for some reason today, it's reminding me a little bit of Thé Noir from Le Labo. I don't know why. Not identical, it just reminds me of it a little bit. Go figure that out. Let me know if you guys get that connection. All right, so we've got a fragrance, one that launched earlier this year. Perfumer Jordi Fernandez created for BDK. It's Impadia. So Jordi Fernandez is an Gévaudan perfumer. And also Canton Biche is a Gévaudan perfumer. I don't see any Canton Biche creations here yet. I think also this is probably the very first Gévaudan perfumer fragrance for BDK. I don't see any others. But this does remind me of a combo of Guidance and Delina. More Guidance to me. And I don't know if BDK set out to do their own version of Guidance, but maybe it was a rose fragrance they wanted to put out, and somehow, since both Jordi Fernandez and Canton Biche are in the same firm, they have access to the same ingredients, and somehow the connection, the formula turned out to be reminiscent of some other Canton Biche creations. But the rose in here is super creamy and a bit candied as well. There is a slight juiciness, but I don't say this is super juicy and watery. It's more kind of deeper texture. But I like it. And if I'm going to connect it to, not Delina, I get more Guidance with this rather than Delina. If I'm going to connect it to Guidance, I feel like the rose is a lot more amped up in this. The rose just really stands out here. It's a rose fragrance for me, whereas Guidance is other things happening. But the rose is what's reminding me of Guidance. It's the rose. That's the star. This has depth, but I think it's an easy fragrance to wear when it's warm outside. Like I wear Rose de Taille from Paris Monte Carlo in the extract concentration. I can totally get away with wearing that in the heat. I mean, fragrances don't bother me in the heat, strong fragrances, especially only if they're like uber animalic or something. So this is perfect in the heat for me. Now, some people might be bothered by, because it might come off a bit too intense, but I feel like this comes alive more when it's there's warmth on your body. Just blooms a lot more. So that's Impadia. I don't know how successful Impadia has been for the brand. Let me know if you're a fan. Let me know if you get the connection to Guidance. Let me know if you get the connection to Delina. Add a comment below. All right, so we've got another new release from this year. So we started out with Impadia, then it went to Nectar Oud, and then finally we have Vanille Caviar. So this Nectar Oud, I believe, is, well, actually, it's an extrait de parfum, as you can see right here. They say extrait de parfum. But I believe this is a Harrods exclusive. I'm not sure if it's a permanent exclusive. And the brand already has an Oud Abramad. Abramad, is that how you say it? But Nectar Oud is created by Anne Filippo. Both of the ouds are Western ouds here. We're not dealing with animalic, all-natural ouds. These are accords. There's a lot of oil here. And I feel like we're dealing with cypriol as well. You can totally smell it. And it's used to create that oud accord. But for some reason, this fragrance, you can really smell the perfume oils. I don't know why. There's an oily factor about it. Behind that, there's the fruitiness. There's fruits here. Maybe there's some light rose as well. But they're just kind of assisting the oud or the oud accord. Not overpowering with the fruits, not overpowering with the floral notes. It's very woody and aromatic and earthy. There might be some light connection to something like Rasquinet's The Moon, but I personally prefer The Moon over this. But also The Moon is so much more expensive. I think it's pretty solid. And I'm going to give you my clue now. I prefer these two fragrances that were launched by BDK over the Vanille Caviar. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But 3 launches from the brand this year, Impadia and Nectar Oud. And then, of course, we've got Vanille Caviar. But we'll get to that because we're doing this in alphabetical order. So I prefer those two more than Vanille Caviar. There's something weird about Vanille Caviar that I have not been able to... Because I got to smell that. I believe they had just put it out in Printemps store in Paris in October, very, very early October. I thought it was just strange. But the more I wear it, the more it gives me the idea of vanilla powder, but so twisted, like they've twisted it or something. But anyway, we'll come back to that in a little bit. This next one is another oud from the house, and I believe the brand launched with this fragrance, Oud Abremad. This is actually quite a good oud. Once again, it's a accord. It's not your all-natural oud. It's dark and smoky. This reminds me more of the ouds that were very popular in the 2010s. Honestly, I have to be honest, I kind of like this more than Nectar Oud. There's a fiery, smoky quality about it that I like, sweetened up with some surrounding notes. I haven't been excited about ouds much lately, but there's something good about this one, that it doesn't get funky or animalic, for one. But it's a nice accord that they've created. It's pretty intense. It's dark and smoky and fiery. And I think maybe there's some, there's some probably light rose in there. Other woods. It's really good. This one's really, really good. So... this is created by Mathilde Bajau again. Go figure. Mathilde Bajau has created the most popular of the brand, Gris Charnel. And probably Gris Charnel Extrait is also popular, but I think the regular fragrances are probably more popular than extracts. But that Oud Abremad is quite good. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and spray some on. It's a lot of sprays. Ooh, I like it. I think there's some patchouli in here. Ooh. It is developing into a little bit of funk, but I think that's intentionally created that way. This is not a like real oud. But it's quite smoky. And it's also quite dense. Not as oily as the extracts would be, but there's quite a bit of oil on there. There's, behind some of the smoky funk, there's a slight reminder of Oud Wood by Tom Ford. So there's probably like some spices in here, like cardamom and things like that, maybe some nutmeg. That's actually good. Oud Abremad. Let me know if you're a fan of this one. Who wants another oud video? I haven't done an oud video in ages. So we've got 2 ouds from the brand. Nectar Oud, which, as I said, was an exclusive to Harrods, and I don't know if that's going to permanently stay an exclusive. But I'm quite surprised with Oud Abremad. It's quite good. So we skipped a fragrance, which is one of the fragrances I do not have. It's called Nuit de Sable, created by Marie Schneider, perfumer that I've actually met in the past. So I don't have that one, unfortunately, so I can't talk about it. But have I smelled it? I can't remember if I've smelled that one, unfortunately, so I can't comment on that one, sadly. Anyway, let's move on to Passoir, which is this. So Passoir is the EGP version of my favorite fragrance, Passoir Extrait. I've gotten many compliments from Passoir Extrait. I wear it strong, and I get a lot of like projection and things like that off of me. So I love wearing that. But for me, this version comes off a bit more mass. Does it make sense? Like this version feels like it's just like the Bouquet de Hongrie. I think that's how you say it. That version, I mean, those two fragrances seem like they could be in a designer bottle, because there's something about them that smells like I've smelled similar fragrances in more mass market designer bottles. But it does have the DNA of the extract. So the extract is basically taking the original and intensifying it for us. So I get the original. I think it's fruity. It's there's earthy notes here. I find it to be quite sexy, but it does also lean a bit feminine, this version, in comparison to the extract. And again, it seems like there's something, I've smelled this somewhere along the way. I like that. I kind of like that quite a bit. I still prefer the extract, but the EGP acts fresher and thinner. But Passoir Extrait was the second extrait that came out from this house. And I don't know how popular Passoir in the original is, but most likely the fact that the brand launched this as the second extrait, Passoir must be quite popular. I don't know if that's exactly what the brand does, but the fact that they launched Rouge Smoking Extrait third makes me think that Rouge Smoking is the third popular of the brand. I don't know how they do these, but that's what I'm thinking. But I'm happy that they did the Extrait, because I absolutely love the Extrait. It's got quince as a fruit. It's got patchouli. I think it's got some chocolatey touches, but I find it to be super sexy. Super, super sexy. Yes. This actually gives me like very, very faint reminders of the experience of fragrances like Angel, maybe Coco Mademoiselle, but a lot more thicker, denser, a lot more concentrated. And I think it's also pear in here, but a lot fruitier, if that makes sense. But what really does it for me is the intensity, the longevity, the sexiness of the patchouli, and the bright, juicy fruitiness of the fruits that are in here. I much prefer this over the original. Totally do. But let me know your thoughts. Are you a fan of Passoir, or are you a fan of Passoir Extrait? And tell me, why do you like one over the other? Like, why do you like Passoir over Passoir Extrait, and vice versa? What does it for you with what version that you really enjoy? I like to find out, because I'm trying to figure out what the brand does and why they launch certain fragrances. So as I said, the first extract the brand launched was Gris Charnel Extrait. The second was Passoir Extrait. Third, Rouge Smoking Extrait. So does that mean that the brand sells the most in that particular order? If anybody knows, do comment. So we are going to Rouge Smoking next. I really like the name of this fragrance. It's quirky. Also, I could see a movie called Rouge Smoking. Something from the 50s or 60s. I don't know why. I went to film school. So this has cherry as a note, but I think this came out before the cherry trend really took off. This does have the DNA of Amélie Bourgeois, because this is the Flare perfumes. This is created by her. I think it's powdery, ambery, woody for sure, slight spiciness. There are definitely like almondy touches. I almost feel like there's heliotrope, creating a powdery effect, an almondy effect. I don't get like a really super strong almondy effect, but I think there's like an almondy thing happening in this. There's something super cozy about it. And I think behind the powdery effect, there's a creamy underlying effect as well. That's what's kind of giving me that super coziness. Kind of like the huggable kind of an experience. Enveloping. But I wouldn't call it my favorite from the line. I just wouldn't. I like it, but I much prefer Velvet Tonka. In a similar vein. They don't smell alike, obviously. It's more Tonka and almonds. All right, so the extract, on the other hand, was like, whoa. Super potent, super nose blinding. Super nose blinding. So this came out around the same time as Angel Share Paradis. Both of the fragrances were extract. Both of them completely nose blinding. It's so extreme that it blinds your nose. You can't smell anything, so you end up spraying more. I think what I can totally smell the Flair Perfumer's DNA here, even more than the original Rouge Smoking. And it's the reason why I like this one. And I can see why this is popular. I think it's enough time that my nose has adjusted to this. It doesn't blind it as much as it used to when I first started wearing it. I can totally smell the fragrance, and I can totally smell the DNA of the perfumers that are created this. It's Amélie Bourgeois and Margot Le Paih-Guérin. So I really do enjoy their creations, and I can totally smell the DNA. And this is not bothering me as much as it used to. I think when I first was testing this out, it was an Ambroxan bomb, but to the max. It almost reminded me of, I'm going to pause. It almost reminded me of the intensity of fragrances like Thomas Cosmala's number 11, Super Amber, or the number 4. I'm sorry, not the number 11. I think it was number 10 that I'm referring to. It kind of reminded me of either number 4 or number 10, which I don't see nearby. I can't grab it. But how it kind of overwhelms with the overdose of the amber woods or the ambroxan. But since this has been sitting, I'm experiencing it now much better. And it smells quite good, even though it's still pretty potent with the overdose of ambroxan. So I can see that this is popular. And the cherry is there. It is cherry, but it's not lost cherry. It's not that kind of a cherry. In fact, I would call this a diet cherry. It's cherry light. There's cherry there, but it doesn't smell like lost cherry or a lot of other cherry fragrances that are inspired by lost cherry. I like that one, actually, now that I think about it. I think the extracts are good. I'm wondering what they're going to launch as an extract next. We shall see. All right. Next, we've got a fragrance created by a co-perfumer at Flair who works with the ladies of the Rouge Smoking. This is Anne-Sophie's Sel d'Argent. So I believe it stands for Silver Salt. Is that correct? Now, this might be a bit polarizing. I don't know if salty fragrances have totally caught on. So it's a blue bottle, obviously, as you can see. So inspired by the sea, but it's salty. There's a salt. I mean, how do you capture the smell of salt? When you take a big bucket, not a bucket, but like a jar of salt, there is a smell in there. For sure there is. And it kind of smells like this. This, to me, is salty, musky, a bit marine, maybe perhaps ambery and woody, but it's kind of acting like a skin scent. So It's not super potent. It's not super loud. I mean, Nectar Oud is an extrait, as you can see. Well, I guess I should say that's four extracts now. Even though Nectar Oud came out as a individual fragrance, it didn't have a flanker. I mean, it's not a flanker of another fragrance. That makes 4 extracts, but I'm still wondering what extract they're going to do. Definitely not of Sel d'Argent. More like probably Impadia or Velvet Tonka, I'm assuming. We shall see. But yeah, the Sel d'Argent is a bit nondescript. It's for those folks that want kind of musky, skin-scenty kind of fragrances. Salty, for sure, a bit marine. Maybe there's some citruses in here as well. Woods and amber, but I don't think this is a projection monster. It's going to sit close to the skin and things like that. I like it, but it's a forgettable fragrance, if that makes sense. It's not something that I would keep coming back to, unless I'm doing a video of salty fragrances, then that's definitely something I would feature in it. Or if I like my skin scents to be salty, then I would be pulling for it. So if you are a fan of salty fragrances and you haven't found your favorite salty fragrance and you haven't checked that out, I would highly recommend you try it. So the next fragrance is Tabac Rose. I spoke about this one earlier because we mentioned Ambre SAFRANO. This, I don't know, for some reason, I used to love this a lot more than I do now. It's tobacco, it's rose. I'm experiencing the oiliness that I experience here. Like, literally, it's oil. Almost like car oil. I don't know if there was oud in this one. But it's supposed to be chocolate. It's supposed to be rose. It's supposed to be tobacco. It's not a super wow fragrance, but I do prefer it more than Ambre SAFRANO. I wish it was a bit more chocolatey. And it's acting quite oudy for me. And when you smell it, it's definitely got the Julien Rasquinet DNA. Totally does. I mean, you can totally pick up his DNA in that fragrance, but really cannot pick up the DNA of Julien Rasquinet in 54. We went back and forth quite a bit on that fragrance. Quite a bit. We had a lot of mods, almost 100. But this one, I mean, you can totally smell the Julien Rasquinet signature here. And as I mentioned, I get oud here. It's acting oudy. And not so chocolatey. And I also feel like there's saffron here. And maybe some cypriol as well. Anyway, that's Tabac Rose. I used to like it a lot more. I've kind of fallen out of love with this one. It's not doing it for me as much as it used to. Next, it's Tuberose Imperial. So, I've been mentioning in videos that I've been kind of hating Tuberose, but I don't know why. This one actually doesn't bother me as much. I don't consider it like a favorite fragrance of mine. I also consider it to be quite candied. This is created by Cécile Maton. Maton? From Man. I believe Cécile Maton does the fragrances for Armani. Which ones are those? Armani, a very popular men's collection. But this is candied tuberose, a bit bubblegummy. It's sweet and floral. And it has a very mass market smell to it. It doesn't smell extremely niche. I believe this is one of the earlier creations from the brand. I can tell. Anybody into tuberose that's candied, bubblegummy, sweet, should definitely try Tuberose Imperial. Let me know if you're a fan of that. I don't hate it as much as some tuberose fragrances are bothering me lately, but it's not something I would rush out to buy personally because I'm not the biggest fan of tuberose. I appreciate tuberose quite a bit. In fact, I actually love the flower. The flower itself, if it's been growing in the heat and it's blooming, you can smell the intoxicating smell. I love that about that flower, but lately I haven't smelled it exactly like that in perfumes. There's a lot more going on with it. And one year I gave my mom the original Michael Kors for women. And that, to me, was like true tuberose. And then probably 10 years prior to that, I gave my mom another tuberose fragrance called AMBRE by Givenchy. Another one that had like that authentic tuberose smell. This to me smells like tuberose plus a lot of other things happening with it, if that makes sense. Okay, now we've got the latest release, Vanille Caviar. So when you read the name of a fragrance and it has the word caviar in it, you know you're in for a kind of a weird, wild ride. So caviar as a smell is not something people really love as an idea of a scent to wear, right? What do you guys think? Do you like the smell of caviar? I like the flavor, that's salty, kind of fishy, even though I'm not a big fan of marine. In the right amounts, I kind of like the flavor. This, to me, is a weirdly strange fragrance, honestly, guys. So it's vanilla, and this is the second vanilla for the brand. And I'm going to do some comparison of the two as well. Again, first off, there is a slight reminder of a vanilla powder. Slight. But I don't know if the idea was to create something that was reminiscent to vanilla powder, or maybe that's what they got and they said, let's cover it up with some stuff to not smell like vanilla powder too much, but it smells like vanilla powder still. And you've got other things happening that throws the fragrance into the weird category. So the first time I smelled this at Printemps in Paris, it was very early October. It was really weird to me. And at that time, I did not get the vanilla powder connection. And for some strange reason, it smelled like a licoricey, rubbery, leathery vanilla. But the more I've been testing it out, the more vanilla powder it becomes. But there's something weird happening, and I think that's where we get the caviar effect. But I think the more you smell this, the more it will remind you of vanilla powder. But it kind of rubbed me the wrong way at first. I think eventually this weirdness goes away as this fragrance is drying down. And it kind of becomes a kind of a dry, powdery vanilla. But it is a strange fragrance. Do I give them credit for making something strange that people will talk about? Or is it just too weird of a fragrance? Too reminiscent of vanilla powder? What do you guys think? Let me know who's a fan of this. And let me know who does not like it. Honestly, I was not a big fan of vanilla powder when it first came out. I mean, you can watch a video I did of that fragrance. It wasn't as weird as Deep Dark Vanilla from Dias and Durga, which is also in that same video. But I thought vanilla powder was weird. But for some reason, it just started growing on me and I actually ended up liking it. So I don't hate the vanilla caviar. Or Vanille Caviar, I should say. But I also think it's quite weird. There's just something weird in there that rubs you the wrong way. Like it's not smooth. It's like intentionally there to like to piss you off or something. Like, what the hell were they thinking, kind of a thing. Do you get that from this fragrance? Anyway, Vanille Caviar. Maybe a lot of people will talk about it and it'll become successful. I don't know. But I don't think that fragrance will become successful personally. That's what I think. But on the other hand, I absolutely love Vanille Leather. An amazing Dominique Ropion creation. Only negative thing I have for this is it needs to be beefier, so maybe they'll make an extract of this. But this stuff is super awesome. I love it. That's my only negativity about this one. It's just kind of quiet. I wanted it to be loud. Ah, it's so good. Once again, it's kind of a dry dry kind of a vanilla. And I think we're getting that dryness from the leather. To me, it's almost like suede leather, but also with a violet twist. Like I feel like I get a lot of violet. And that violet that's in here gives me a vintage vibe, which I absolutely love. This is so, so good. I just wish it was a bit beefier. That's all. Put some meat on the bones kind of a thing. But I don't know. Maybe this is not as interesting as Vanille Caviar. Maybe it's too old school. You know what it reminds me of a little bit? I think Dior had a fragrance called CUIR Canage. It reminds me a little bit of that. The violet in this kind of reminds me a little bit of Misia from Chanel. Just the violet part. But I love this. So good. Let me know if you're a fan of Vanille Leather. Or do you prefer Vanille Caviar? So they should make a vanilla trilogy. What should they do? What should be the third one? Well, I'll think about it until we get to the next fragrances. But if you have any thoughts on a third vanilla fragrance, vanille something, let me know. Add a comment below. But let's move on to... Velvet Tonka, which is also the same perfumer, Alexandra Carlin, of the creation of this one. Same thing as Velvet Tonka. Whereas I feel like Vanille Caviar is a bit weird. I absolutely really love Velvet Tonka. She also created 3312 Saint-Honoré, which I spoke about. And she's also created Villa Neroli, which I'm going to get to right after Velvet Tonka. Velvet Tonka, to me, is nutty, almondy, creamy, smooth, and velvety for sure, because it's called Velvet Tonka. But it's so super delicious. So what I like about this one, it's got a marzipan smell. And really, literally, you can smell the bitterness of the almonds. In this case, I think they're using almonds too. But I think we're getting the bitterness from the Tonka here. Super cozy, smooth. It's got a kind of like holidays, cooking at home kind of a smell to it as well. At least that's what it reminds me of. Because there's foodie smells in here. More dessert foodie. I love that. Maybe behind it all, there's a slight cherry thing happening as well. There's got to be vanilla in there and some ambery touches as well, I think. But super good. That's Velvet Tonka. Definitely a favorite of mine from the house. And then also Villa Neroli is quite good as well. And it's a Neroli fragrance, but behind it all, there's some sweetness, which kind of takes you in the territory of something like Love Don't Be Shy. But not quite there, you know. It's not super intense with... It's not super intense with the sweetness. But I kind of get that a little bit. But in the end, it's part of the blue collection. And you can see it's a blue bottle. So it's referring to the, you know, summer, blue water and Mediterranean and all that kind of stuff. But there is something warm under there, like for sure. Like it warms it up. And it's a delicacy. I think it's also a delicacy in France. Kind of eating the sweet, desserty things with orange blossom. It is where I come from. I love it. I love the flavor with, you know, vanillic things and orange blossom laced with vanilla ice cream. So delicious. And I get that a little bit here, you know? That's really good. It's definitely really, really good. That's definitely one of my favorites from the house. Sadly, I'm not a fan of Vanille Caviar. It doesn't do it for me. I don't know. Maybe just like vanilla powder, I might come back to it and it might open up for me, become a favorite. But it hasn't really worked. And the last fragrance that I don't have is Wood Jasmine. I don't own that one, or the Nuit de Sable. So Wood Jasmine, once again, I don't know really much about it, but it's obvious the name Wood and Jasmine. So it's a woody jasmine fragrance created by Camille Leguay, who I actually met at Paris Perfume Week. Not this year, last year? I can't remember. Sometime. I think she's got her own brand. So Wood Jasmine and Nuit de Sable I do not have, so sadly I can't talk to you about them. But the rest of the fragrances I just went over. Let me know which are your favorites, which of these fragrances you enjoy the most. I'm going to give you a top 10 now, even though it's a pretty small collection. I'll definitely give you a top 10 of my favorite fragrances. Okay, off to the ranking now. At number 10, I've got Rouge Smoking. So Rouge Smoking in the EDP concentration at number 10. I think it totally fits there. Then we've got Rouge Smoking Extrait at number 9. Yes, it's beat out the original Rouge Smoking, but I'm fine with that. I think it kind of deserves that spot. What do you guys think? Number 8, Impadia. It's not higher on the list, but I do enjoy it. You know, I like rose fragrances. Sometimes I get burnt out on certain notes. Sometimes I never do, like patchouli and vanilla I never get tired of. But rose I got tired of. Oud I got tired of. But I do love a good rose fragrance, and I think that's decent. It's done pretty nicely. So then we've got, let's see, 7th spot, Oud Abramad. I was tossing between Nectar Oud or Oud Abramad. I'm putting Oud Abramad here. I can't believe how good it is. I really love it. And I think it's definitely that kind of fiery, hot, smoky, you know, oud fragrance that's not overly animalic. It's an oud accord, but it's got enough funk to make it something very unique rather than become something straightforward and boring and woody, if that makes sense. Villa Neroli at number 6. Yeah, I like that quite a bit. I really, really do. I think they've teased us with some sweetness to make the fragrance not super fresh and floral, to give it some warmth under there. And growing up eating vanilla ice cream with orange blossom syrup in it or water in it, I just really love that combo. And Love Don't Be Shy was one of the reasons why I was a fan of it, because I was so familiar with the ice cream. And here you've got a little bit of sweetness, not overly sweet like Love Don't Be Shy. So you get a little tease of that kind of a style. It's still mostly fresh, but a little sweetness helps it along the way. Then we've got Crème de Cuir right here. Oh my God, that's good. Really, really great. Kind of a suede, leathery, creamy fragrance. It's a leather that's easy to wear, but on skin, it might have some slight funk and light, you know, funk that leather fragrances have, but it doesn't go super animalic or anything like that because it's balanced out with that kind of creaminess. And then at 4, it's Gris Charnel Extrait. Yes, Gris Charnel Extrait. I think it's more exciting than the original, but I could see why the original is the OG and why it's so popular. But I like that depth that I get with the extract version. So I'm going with that at number 4. Number 3, it's Vanille Leather. It's so good. Really, really great. I think this is the only Dominique Ropion. Yeah, this is the only Dominique Ropion, and I think he did a great job. I just wish, my only complaint with it, which I end up overspraying, it's that it needs to be a bit more potent. So I'm hoping they would come out with extract of this, which I don't know if it's one of the more popular fragrances from the house, because it does go vintage on me. But this is really, really awesome. Vanille Leather definitely deserves number 3. Number 2, Velvet Tonka. It's totally marzipan in a bottle. Super bitter almondy Tonka fragrance, lightly cherry. It's a bit doughy and all that good stuff. It's a very homey, like it reminds me of home and cooking with mom as a young kid. That's what it reminds me of. But super cozy, comforting, sweet, intoxicating Velvet Tonka. And of course, number 1, Passoir Extrait. It's really good. Fruity, juicy. It's got the woodiness, the spiciness, and of course the patchouli's earthiness, and it creates a kind of a sparkling effervescence. Let's try some on. Chocolate. Yes, it does have a bit of chocolatey touch, but I believe it's quince and pear. I love the smell. And what I like about it is it does garner compliments. People love it. But as I always say with compliments, if you're wimpy sprays, you're not going to get them. Increase your sprays so people will smell your trail, and follow you and ask you what you're wearing. But yeah, Passoir Extrait totally deserves a number 1 spot for me. It's so good. It's that good. But that's my ranking. So if I was to add 2 more, 11, Nectar Oud, 12, 312 Rue Saint-Honoré. I don't know where Vanille Caviar would go. I don't know. Maybe I just need time to get used to this one. But let me know your thoughts on the latest fragrance from BDK called Vanille Caviar. Do you like it? Is it a yay or a nay? Add a comment below. And let me know, what are your favorite BDK fragrances? How is your ranking? Do give me a top 5 from the house. I'd like to find out what you think of the house. And in regards to the 2 missing fragrances, Nuit de Sable and Wood Jasmine, were those really good, or were they, dismissible fragrances? Let me know. Add a comment below. But thanks so much for watching today's video, guys. If you have any questions or comments, do list below. Do add some comments and let me know what you'd like to see as far as a deep dive video goes next. Last week I did Costume National. This week it's a BDK. There might be one more surprise this week as well. So stay tuned for that. But I appreciate you tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, list below. Otherwise, like this video, share it. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon as well. See you later. Bye-bye.